I watched my sister Vanessa slip my engagement ring onto her perfectly manicured finger, and I smiled. Not the hollow, people pleasing smile I'd worn in my previous life, but a genuine smile that came from knowing exactly how this would end. Are you sure, Emma? She asked, her voice dripping with false concern as she admired the 3 carat diamond under the chandelier light. I mean, Adrian gave this to you. Don't you want to wear it to the engagement party? Keep it, I said, taking a sip of my coffee. It suits you better anyway. My mother beamed at Vanessa, her favorite daughter, while my father didn't even look up from his newspaper. The scene was painfully familiar. I'd lived it before, 6 years ago, in a life that had ended with me alone and broken. But this time, I knew the truth about that ring, about Adrian, and about exactly how much my family was willing to sacrifice me for Vanessa's happiness. This time, I was ready. The engagement party was tonight, and in my previous life, I had worn that ring with such pride, believing I was finally worthy of something beautiful. I had believed Adrian Chen loved me, that my family would finally see my value, that everything was falling into place. I had been so devastatingly wrong, but let me back up because you need to understand how I got here, both times. I was 23 when I died, though my death certificate said I was 24. Even in death, they got my age wrong. No one had remembered my birthday that year. I'd spent my entire life as the spare daughter, the one who existed in Vanessa's shadow. She was 2 years older, devastatingly beautiful, charming, and clever in all the ways that mattered to our parents. I was ordinary. Brown hair to her glossy black, average height to her model tall frame, quiet to her vivacious. My mother used to joke that she must have used up all her good genes on Vanessa, and I was the clearance sale baby. It wasn't a joke to me. Growing up in the Hartley family meant understanding your place. Vanessa was the star, I was the supporting cast. She got piano lessons, I got her hand-me-down books. She went to private school, I went to public. When college came, she got Stanford. I got community college because Emma's just not university material, and we need to save for Vanessa's graduate school. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I didn't mind. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through state school, graduated with honors, and got a job at a decent marketing firm. I was proud of myself, even if my family barely noticed. Then I met Adrian Chen at a company mixer. He was perfect. Heir to Chen Industries, handsome, sophisticated, and for some inexplicable reason, he chose me. Me. Plain Emma Hartley with her discount wardrobe and her studio apartment in the bad part of town. He took me to expensive restaurants, bought me jewelry, told me I was beautiful. For the first time in my life, someone made me feel special. When he proposed after 6 months, I cried with joy. My family was shocked. Shocked that someone like Adrian would want someone like me. My mother actually said those exact words. But they rallied quickly, already planning the wedding, imagining the social connections, the prestige of having Adrian Chen as a son-in-law. Vanessa was happy for me, or so I thought. She helped me plan the wedding, picked out flowers, went dress shopping with me. She was the maid of honor, my only real friend in a family that had never quite wanted me. I trusted her completely. The engagement party was supposed to be my night. I wore a dress I'd saved for months to buy, had my hair professionally done for the first time in my life. Adrian was running late, as usual. He was always busy with work. But I didn't mind. I was standing in the Chen family mansion, about to be welcomed into a family that actually seemed to value me, or at least value what I represented for their son. Vanessa had been drinking. I remember she pulled me aside and told me she needed to talk. We went out to the garden, away from the party, and that's when she said it. Emma, I need to tell you something. Adrian and we've been seeing each other. I laughed. I actually laughed because it had to be a joke. Some sort of strange, inappropriate joke. I'm serious, she said, and her eyes were cold, calculating. We've been together for 3 months. He wants to call off the engagement, but I told him I'd handle it. I thought you should know before the public humiliation. I stood there frozen as she walked back inside. I watched through the glass doors as she approached Adrian, whispered something in his ear. He looked uncomfortable, guilty. He glanced toward the garden where I stood, and I saw it in his eyes, the truth. She wasn't lying. I ran. I ran out of that garden, through the side gate, down the manicured streets of the wealthy neighborhood where I'd never belong. I ran until I couldn't breathe, until I collapsed on a bench in some random park. No one came after me. Not Adrian, not my family, not Vanessa. I sat on that bench for hours, my phone buzzing with messages that I couldn't bring myself to read. When I finally looked, they were all from my mother. "Where did you go? You embarrassed the family." Vanessa told us what happened. "How could you be so selfish? Adrian deserves better than your dramatics." Not one message asked if I was okay. The wedding was called off, of course. Adrian and Vanessa started dating publicly 2 weeks later. My mother blamed me for not being woman enough to keep him. My father said I should have tried harder. They were married within 6 months, a whirlwind romance that the society pages ate up. I spiraled, I lost my job, couldn't focus, couldn't function. My savings drained away. I moved into an even smaller apartment, barely able to afford rent. Depression swallowed me whole. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped caring. My family moved on without me. Vanessa was pregnant within a year, giving our parents their first grandchild. She posted photos of her perfect life, the mansion, the designer clothes, the doting husband, the baby shower where our mother cried with joy. I was never in any of those pictures. It was like I'd been erased. I thought about ending it many times, but I was too much of a coward, too afraid of even that final step. So I just faded. I existed in a gray space, going through motions, waiting for nothing in particular. The end came suddenly. I was crossing the street to my job at a convenience store, the only work I could find. A car ran a red light. I remember the screech of brakes, the impact, and then nothing. I woke up screaming, but I wasn't in a hospital. I was in my childhood bedroom, in my small twin bed, staring at posters I'd hung when I was 17. My phone said it was March 15th, 6 years earlier. The day before I'd met Adrian at that company mixer. I thought I'd gone insane. I spent that entire day locked in my room, trying to process what was happening. But the more I examined the evidence, the more I had to accept the impossible. I had been reborn, sent back to relive my life, armed with knowledge of everything that would happen. And God help me, I wanted revenge. I spent 3 months planning, 3 months watching, learning, being the perfect invisible Emma that everyone expected. I went to that company mixer, met Adrian, and played my part beautifully. He asked me out, and I said yes. He pursued me, and I let him catch me. When he proposed after 6 months, I accepted with tears in my eyes. My family reacted exactly as they had before. Shock, then greedy calculation. Vanessa immediately volunteered to be my maid of honor, and I smiled and thanked her, knowing exactly what she'd do. Because I'd spent those months doing research. Real research. In my previous life, I'd been too naive, too trusting. I'd accepted Adrian's story about being an heir to Chen Industries. I'd never questioned why someone so wealthy was interested in me. This time, I dug deeper. Adrian Chen was a fraud. He was related to the Chen family, but distantly, a third cousin twice removed. He'd been living off his family connections his entire life, taking money from investors for fake business ventures, selling shares in companies he didn't own. He was charming and confident and very good at making people believe he was more than he was. And he was drowning in debt. Gambling debts, mostly. He owed money to some very dangerous people, and he was desperate. That's why he'd chosen me, plain, naive Emma from a family with just enough money to be useful, but not enough to ask difficult questions. He'd planned to marry me, drain my family's modest savings, and disappear. Vanessa had just been a bonus, a prettier model he couldn't resist. But Vanessa was worse because she'd known. I found the emails buried deep in her old laptop that she'd carelessly left at our parents' house. She'd known Adrian was a con man. She'd known he was using me, and she'd seen an opportunity. She'd seduced him, convinced him that she could offer more. Our parents would give her anything, including access to their retirement fund, the money my father had inherited from his parents, everything they'd spent a lifetime building. She'd helped him plan it out. They'd get married, clean out the accounts, and run. They had never intended to stay. After the wedding, they were going to disappear, leaving my parents bankrupt and me with the blame. In my previous life, something had gone wrong. Adrian had panicked, Or maybe he developed genuine feelings for Vanessa. Instead of running, they'd stayed and tried to make it work. The money had run out quickly. Adrian was terrible with finances. My parents had slowly realized they'd been conned, but by then Vanessa was pregnant and they'd rather die than admit their golden child had betrayed them. So they'd blamed me instead for being too needy, too dramatic, too much. If I hadn't run away from the engagement party, they'd said, maybe Adrian wouldn't have fallen for Vanessa. It was twisted logic, but they'd committed to it. This time would be different. This time, I had a plan. I stood in the kitchen the morning of the engagement party, watching Vanessa admire my ring. She'd taken the bait perfectly. I'd played my part, insecure Emma, worried that the ring was too flashy, that people would judge me for being above my station. Vanessa had swooped in with her false concern and gentle suggestion. Maybe I should wear it tonight, just for the party. You can wear something simpler, more suited to your style. I'd be doing you a favor, really. My mother had agreed immediately. That's thoughtful of you, Vanessa. Emma, your sister's right. You don't want people thinking you're putting on airs. The ring on Vanessa's finger wasn't my engagement ring from Adrian. It was bait. I'd commissioned it myself, using money I'd saved from working overtime at a job I'd gotten right after my rebirth. It looked expensive, but it was cubic zirconia in a gold-plated setting. $300 total. Adrian had given me the real ring last week, a modest but genuine diamond that I'd locked in a safety deposit box. This fake ring was for Vanessa to steal, because that's what she would do. I'd seen her do it in my previous life, though then I'd been too naive to realize. She'd wear it tonight, Adrian would compliment it, and by the end of the evening, she'd have convinced him that she was the better choice. The prettier, more sophisticated sister who deserved the Chen name. Let her have it, let her have all of it. Because while they were playing their con, I was playing mine. I'd spent the last 6 months cultivating a completely different life. The marketing firm where I worked? I'd impressed the CEO with a campaign that had doubled their client retention. He'd introduced me to his contacts and I'd networked relentlessly. I'd also been taking night classes in business management and had nearly completed a certification. More importantly, I'd met Marcus. Marcus Reed wasn't at all like Adrian. He didn't come from money or society connections. He was a self-made man, the founder of a tech startup that was just beginning to take off. We'd met at a coffee shop where I'd been studying, and he'd asked if the seat across from me was taken. We'd started talking about my coursework, his company, life in general. He was kind, genuinely kind. He listened when I talked, remembered small details, asked thoughtful questions. When he asked me to dinner, I almost said no. I was technically engaged to Adrian, after all, even if I knew it was a sham. But then I thought, why not? In my previous life, I'd followed all the rules and ended up broken. This time, I was writing my own story. Marcus and I had been dating secretly for 3 months. He knew about Adrian. I'd been honest about my complicated situation. I'd told him a version of the truth, that I'd agreed to an engagement under family pressure, but I was realizing it was a mistake. He'd been patient, supportive, never pushing me, but always making it clear that he wanted to be with me. When you're ready, he'd said, I'll be here. Tonight, I'd be ready. The engagement party was at the Chen family estate. The real estate, not whatever address Adrian had claimed. He'd rented the venue using my father's deposit, a detail I'd only learned after my death when bill collectors had started calling my parents. The irony of celebrating our fake engagement at a rented mansion wasn't lost on me. I arrived alone. Adrian had texted that he'd meet me there, another red flag I'd ignored in my previous life. This time, I knew he was probably coordinating with Vanessa, making sure their spontaneous romance looked genuine. I wore a simple black dress, understated and elegant. My hair was pulled back, my makeup minimal. I wanted to blend in, to be forgettable. In my previous life, I'd worn a bright red dress, trying so hard to be noticed. Tonight, I wanted to disappear. Vanessa made her entrance 20 minutes after me, and she was stunning. She wore a deep emerald gown that clung to her curves, her dark hair cascading down her back. And on her finger, catching the light with every gesture, was my engagement ring. People noticed. Of course they noticed. Vanessa knew how to command attention. Emma, she called out, pulling me into a hug that was all performance. You look lovely, so understated. Thank you, I said sweetly. You look beautiful. That ring really suits you. Her eyes gleamed with triumph. She thought she'd already won. Adrian arrived shortly after, handsome in his tailored suit that probably wasn't paid for. He greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, perfunctory and cold. His eyes found Vanessa immediately, and I watched the spark of interest, the calculation. He was already mentally planning how to engineer their affair. The party proceeded exactly as it had in my previous life. Drinks, small talk, people asking about wedding plans. I smiled and nodded and said all the right things. But I was watching, waiting. It happened just before dinner. Vanessa pulled me aside, her expression concerned. Emma, can we talk? In private? Here it was. The script I'd memorized from my previous life. We walked out to the garden, the same garden where my world had collapsed 6 years ago. But this time, my heart wasn't breaking. This time, I was in control. I need to tell you something, Vanessa began. And I let her say it. Let her confess about Adrian, about their affair, about how she was sorry, but she couldn't help herself. I listened to every word, watched her face, and saw not a hint of real remorse, only triumph. When she finished, I nodded slowly. I see. That's it? She looked almost disappointed. You're not going to cry? Scream? Why would I asked, and I pulled out my phone. You can have him, Vanessa. You can have all of it. I texted Adrian. We need to talk. I know everything. Then I texted Marcus. I'm ready. Are you still outside? His response was immediate, always. I looked at my sister, at her confusion, her growing suspicion. Adrian's a con man. He's using both of us to steal from our parents. I've known for months. I've been letting you steal him because you deserve each other. Her face went white. You're lying. Am I? I smiled. Check his background. Real deep dive, not the surface stuff. Look at his bank accounts, his business ventures, his gambling debts. I've already sent all the evidence to the police, by the way, and to the actual Chen family. They're very interested in someone using their name to commit fraud. I started walking toward the gate, but I turned back one more time. Oh, and that ring you're wearing? Cubic zirconia. $50 for the stone, $200 for the setting. The real ring, the one Adrian actually bought with Dad's deposit money, is in a safety deposit box as evidence. I left her standing there, mouth open, as I walked out of the garden. Out of the party, out of that entire life. Marcus was waiting by his car, exactly as he'd promised. He'd been parked outside all evening, ready to leave the moment I said the word. Hey, he said softly, opening the car door for me. Are you okay? I looked back at the mansion one more time. Through the windows, I could see the party starting to break up, confusion spreading as people realized something was wrong. I saw Adrian rushing toward the garden, probably going to find Vanessa. In a few minutes, the police would arrive. The real Chen family representatives would appear. Everything would unravel. I'm perfect, I told Marcus, and I meant it. Take me home. Which home? He asked. Yours or ours? Ours. He'd been asking me to move in for a month now, offering me a place in the life he was building. I'd been hesitating, held back by the ghost of who I'd been, the girl who thought she didn't deserve good things. Ours, I said. He smiled, that warm smile that had never once felt calculating or fake, and drove us away from the disaster I'd orchestrated. Away from my old life and toward something new. The fallout was spectacular. Adrian and Vanessa both were arrested that night. The evidence I'd compiled was airtight. Emails, bank records, testimony from other people Adrian had scammed. The real Chen family was furious about the use of their name and threw their considerable legal weight behind the prosecution. My parents were devastated, but not in the way I'd expected. My mother called me 3 days after the arrest, and for the first time in my life, she sounded small. Emma, we need to talk. I met her at a coffee shop, neutral territory. She looked older than I remembered, tired and worn. How long did you know? She asked. Long enough, I said. Long enough to protect you and Dad from losing everything. Because that was the thing. In my previous life, they'd lost everything. Their savings, their house, their retirement. They'd died broke and bitter, never admitting they'd chosen wrong in supporting Vanessa. This time, I'd warned them before any money changed hands. I'd given anonymous tips that had frozen their accounts before Adrian could drain them. They'd been saved despite themselves. "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother asked. "We could have—" "Would you have believed me?" I interrupted. "If I'd come to you 6 months ago and said Adrian was a con man and Vanessa was helping him, would you have believed me? Or would you have accused me of jealousy?" She didn't answer. We both knew the truth. "Vanessa is our daughter," she finally said. "We can't just abandon her." "I know," I said. "I don't expect you to, but I'm your daughter too, Mom. I've always been your daughter. You just never saw me." I stood up to leave and she grabbed my hand. "Emma, wait. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know. I'm sorry for every time I chose her over you, for every time I made you feel less than. You deserved better." I looked at her, at this woman who'd spent my entire life making me feel invisible, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just a distant sort of pity. "Thank you for saying that," I said, "but I need you to understand something. I don't need you anymore. I don't need your approval, or your love, or your validation. I've built a life without you, and I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy." "With that Marcus person?" She'd clearly been checking up on me. "Yes, with Marcus and with myself. I finally like who I am, Mom. It took dying and being reborn to get here, but I made it. I left her there, and I didn't look back." Marcus's startup took off 6 months later. A major tech company acquired his platform for $50 million, and suddenly we went from comfortable to wealthy. Really wealthy. He proposed on the 1-year anniversary of the night I left the engagement party. We were at the same coffee shop where we'd first met, and he got down on one knee right there in front of everyone. "Emma Hartley," he said, "you're the smartest, bravest, most incredible woman I've ever met. You took control of your life when everything was stacked against you. You saved your family even though they didn't deserve it. You gave me a chance when you had every reason not to trust anyone. Will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, a vintage emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds. He'd remembered me mentioning once that I thought emeralds were underrated. "Yes," I said, and this time when I cried, they were real tears. Happy ones. We got married 3 months later, small ceremony, just close friends and Marcus's family, who'd welcomed me with open arms. My parents were invited, but didn't come. Vanessa was still in prison, awaiting trial. The guest list was tiny, but everyone there genuinely wanted to be there. Everyone there chose me. That's what this was really about, I realized. Not revenge, though that had been satisfying, but about being chosen. About finding people who saw me, really saw me, and decided I was worth their time and love and effort. Adrian had never chosen me. He'd chosen a victim. Vanessa had never chosen me as a sister. She'd chosen herself, always. My parents had never chosen me. They'd chosen the daughter who was easier to love, more rewarding to brag about. But Marcus? He chose me every single day. He chose to listen to my ideas, to support my dreams, to build a life together. His family chose to welcome me, to include me, to care about my happiness. I'd chosen myself too. Chosen to fight, to plan, to take control of my destiny instead of just accepting what I was given. The wedding was perfect, simple, elegant, filled with laughter and joy. When Marcus kissed me at the altar, I knew with absolute certainty that this was real. This was what choosing and being chosen felt like. The trial happened 6 months after our wedding. I was called as a witness. I had to sit in that courtroom and detail exactly how I'd known about Adrian's con, how I'd gathered evidence, how I'd protected my parents. Vanessa stared at me from the defendant's table, and I saw hatred in her eyes, pure, undiluted hatred. "You set me up," she hissed during a break. She'd been released on bail, though Adrian hadn't been so lucky. "You let me think I was winning, and the whole time you were planning this." "No," I said calmly. "You set yourself up. I just stopped playing along. I'm your sister. You were my sister when you decided to steal my fiancé. You were my sister when you helped him plan to bankrupt our parents. You were my sister every time you let Mom and Dad treat me like I was worthless. But you chose yourself over family every single time. I just finally did the same. The trial ended with Adrian getting 8 years for fraud and Vanessa getting 5 as an accomplice. The judge was harsh but fair. They'd targeted vulnerable people, destroyed lives, shown no remorse. My parents sat in the gallery watching their golden child be led away in handcuffs. My mother cried. My father looked broken. I felt nothing. A year after the trial, Marcus and I bought a house. Not a mansion, nothing ostentatious, but a beautiful craftsman in a good neighborhood with a yard big enough for the family we were planning. We adopted a dog, a rescue mutt named Toast, who had anxiety and trust issues and was perfect for us. I'd started my own consulting firm, helping small businesses with their marketing. I was good at it, and word spread. Within a year, I had more clients than I could handle and had to hire an assistant, then 2 assistants, then a small team. Marcus sold his second startup for even more than the first. We were financially secure for life, but more than that, we were happy. We traveled, we tried new hobbies, we hosted dinner parties with our found family of friends and colleagues. Sometimes I thought about my previous life, about the girl who died alone and broken. I thought about how that Emma had believed she deserved nothing better, had accepted crumbs and been grateful for them. This Emma knew better. This Emma had fought for herself and won. 3 years after Vanessa went to prison, I got a letter from her. It was forwarded through my parents. I'd moved twice and never given her my new address. The letter was long, rambling, full of excuses and justifications. She'd been desperate, she wrote, jealous, angry at always having to be perfect, always having to be the golden child. She'd resented the pressure, the expectations. Taking Adrian from me had been her way of rebelling. She was sorry, or so she claimed. She wanted to know if we could talk, maybe rebuild our relationship. She'd been doing therapy in prison, working on herself. She was a different person now. I read the letter 3 times. Then I burned it. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her excuses or her explanations. I didn't need anything from her at all. Marcus found me in the backyard, watching the ashes float away. "Letter from Vanessa," he asked. "How'd you know?" "Your mom mentioned she was getting out soon. I figured she might reach out." I leaned against him, solid and real and here. "She wants to reconnect." "What do you want?" That was the question, wasn't it? In my previous life, I would have wanted her back. I would have been so desperate for family, for connection, that I would have forgiven anything. But I wasn't that Emma anymore. "I want this," I said, gesturing to our home, our life, the future we were building. "I want Sunday mornings with you and Toast. I want my business and our friends and the trip to Japan we're planning. I want the life I chose, not the one I was told I should want." "Then that's what you'll have," he said simply. And it was that simple. I didn't respond to Vanessa's letter. I didn't respond to the 3 that came after it. Eventually, they stopped coming. My parents reached out occasionally. Awkward phone calls where my mother tried to pretend everything was normal and my father stayed silent. I was polite but distant. I didn't need their validation anymore, but I didn't need to punish them either. They were just people who'd made bad choices, who'd learned too late that favoritism and neglect had consequences. I sent them a Christmas card every year, included a photo of Marcus and me and Toast. I signed it Emma Reed with a flourish, a reminder that I'd chosen a new family, a new name, a new life. 5 years after my rebirth, Marcus and I had our first child, a daughter, Clara, with his eyes and my stubborn chin. She was perfect, screaming and red-faced and absolutely perfect. Holding her in the hospital, exhausted and euphoric, I made her a promise. "You will always be chosen," I whispered. "Every single day, I will choose you. I will see you and hear you and value you. You will never doubt that you're loved, that you're worthy, that you matter. I promise." Marcus wrapped his arms around both of us, and I knew he was making the same promise. We would never be the parents I'd had. We would never play favorites, never make one child feel less than. We would choose our daughter and any future children every single day. That was my victory, I realized. Not the revenge, though that had been sweet. Not the money or the success or the beautiful life. But breaking the cycle. being the person I needed and making sure my daughter never had to fight for scraps of love. Clara was 6 months old when I got the final letter from my mother. It was shorter than Vanessa's had been, more honest. "I know you don't need us," she wrote. "I know we failed you in every way that mattered. I know you've built a beautiful life without us, and you have every right to keep us out of it. But I saw the birth announcement. Your daughter is beautiful, and I wonder if maybe you might let us meet her. Not as grandparents, if you don't want that, but just to see her once. To see the woman you've become and the family you've built. We're proud of you, Emma. I know we never said it when it mattered, but we're proud of you now. You saved us from ruin even after we spent your whole life making you feel worthless. You survived and thrived and became someone remarkable. If you never want to see us again, I understand. But if there's any part of you that might want to try, we'd like to try too." I read the letter to Marcus that night after Clara was asleep. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think it doesn't matter what I think," he said. "This is your decision, your family. I'll support whatever you choose." I thought about it for a week. Thought about my childhood, my previous life, the years of neglect and favoritism. Thought about Vanessa and Adrian, and the engagement ring I'd let her steal. But I also thought about Clara, about the family I wanted her to know, about forgiveness, not for my parents' sake, but for my own. "I want to try," I finally said. "Supervised visits, boundaries. If they push or if they make me feel like that girl again, we're done. But I want Clara to know her grandparents, if they can actually be grandparents." So we tried. Slowly, carefully, with firm boundaries. My parents met Clara at a neutral location, a park with Marcus beside me the whole time. They held her gently, marveled at her tiny fingers, and didn't try to take over or give unwanted advice. It was awkward. They didn't magically become perfect parents, but they were trying, really trying to be better, to respect my boundaries, to acknowledge what they'd done, to build something new. My mother looked at me as we were leaving that first visit. "She's beautiful. You're a wonderful mother, Emma. I can see it already." It wasn't enough. It would never be enough to make up for the years of damage. But it was something. A small step toward healing, toward closure, toward whatever complicated relationship we might build. Vanessa was released from prison when Clara was 2. She didn't try to contact me, which I appreciated. I heard through my parents that she'd moved to another state, was working as a waitress, trying to rebuild her life. Part of me felt sorry for her, the tiny part that remembered being sisters as children, before the favoritism and jealousy had poisoned everything. But mostly, I just felt indifferent. She was someone I used to know, someone who'd tried to destroy me and failed. I had no room in my life for that kind of toxicity anymore. Clara turned 3, then 4, then 5. Marcus and I had a son, Oliver, who was quiet and thoughtful and loved building things. Our house was filled with noise and laughter and the beautiful chaos of family life. My business was thriving. I'd expanded into career coaching, helping young women navigate corporate politics and build confidence. I thought about that girl I'd been, so desperate for approval, so convinced she was worthless. I wanted to save other girls from that fate, to show them they were enough exactly as they were. Marcus's third startup was in development. He worked from home most days, taking breaks to play with the kids or make me lunch. We'd found balance, built something sustainable and real. My parents visited regularly now, better grandparents than they'd ever been parents. They spoiled Clara and Oliver in harmless ways. Too much candy, too many toys, the kind of indulgence that comes from guilt and regret. But they respected our rules, listened when I spoke, and never once compared my children to anything. We didn't talk about Vanessa. That door was closed. I was 34, technically 40 if you counted my previous life, when I finally let go of the anger. It happened gradually without me noticing, until one day I realized I didn't think about my previous life anymore. I didn't wake up with revenge fantasies or nurse old wounds. I was just happy. Genuinely, thoroughly happy. Marcus noticed. "You seem lighter lately," he said one night after the kids were in bed. "I feel lighter," I said, like I finally put down something heavy I'd been carrying. The past? The past, the anger, the need to prove I was enough, all of it. I curled up next to him on the couch. I don't need revenge anymore. I don't need anyone to acknowledge what they did or apologize or suffer. I just need this. This, you, the kids, our life. This is enough, more than enough. He kissed the top of my head. You were always enough, Emma. Even before all of this. Even when you couldn't see it. Maybe he was right. Maybe that Emma, the one who died alone and broken, had been enough too. She just hadn't had anyone to show her. But this Emma, this version who'd been given a second chance and seized it with both hands, she knew her worth. She'd fought for it, built it, protected it. She'd let go of people who diminished her and surrounded herself with people who lifted her up. She'd chosen herself, and in doing so, had found people who chose her too. The years passed. Clara went to kindergarten, then elementary school. Oliver followed. Marcus and I celebrated our 10th anniversary with a trip to Paris, leaving the kids with my parents and trusting them completely. I ran into Adrian once at a coffee shop in the city. He was out of prison, looked older and worn down. He saw me, froze, then quickly looked away. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I'd won, completely and thoroughly, and we both knew it. Vanessa remained a ghost, someone I heard about occasionally through my parents, but never saw. She'd gotten married, apparently. Some guy she'd met in a support group. I hoped she was happy in the distant way you hope for someone who hurt you, but no longer has any power over you. My life continued, full and rich, and exactly what I'd built it to be. I wasn't the spare daughter anymore. I wasn't the girl in the shadow. I was Emma Reed, successful businesswoman, loving wife, dedicated mother, loyal friend. I was chosen every day by the people who mattered, but more importantly, I'd chosen myself. That was the real revenge, I realized. Not destroying Vanessa or exposing Adrian, but living well, living fully, building something beautiful out of the ashes of my previous life. Clara was 10 when she came home from school crying. Another girl had been mean to her, told her she wasn't pretty enough, or smart enough, or popular enough. I held her while she cried, and my heart broke for her pain. But I also knew, I knew with absolute certainty, that she had what I'd never had. She had parents who would listen, who would validate her feelings, who would help her see her own worth. "Baby," I said when her sobs had quieted, "some people will try to make you feel small. They'll compare you to others, tell you you're not enough. And it will hurt. I won't lie to you and say it won't hurt." "How do I make it stop?" she asked. "You can't control what other people say or do, but you can choose not to believe them. You can choose to see yourself the way the people who love you see you. And most importantly, you can choose who you let into your life. Choose people who build you up, not tear you down." She looked up at me with Marcus's eyes. "Like you and Daddy. Like me and Daddy. Like your grandparents, even though they weren't always good at it. Like your real friends who love you for who you are." I tucked her hair behind her ear. "And if someone consistently makes you feel bad about yourself, you get to choose to walk away. You don't owe anyone your presence if they don't treat you with kindness. Even family? Especially family. Blood doesn't give someone the right to hurt you." She was quiet for a moment. "Did someone in your family hurt you, Mommy?" I thought about lying, about protecting her from the harsh realities. But I'd promised myself I'd always be honest with my children. "Yes," I said. "When I was younger, my family didn't always treat me well, but I survived it, and I made sure that when I had my own family, I'd do better. That's why I tell you every day that you're loved and valued and important, because I never want you to doubt it the way I did." She hugged me tight. "I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby. Always." At night, after Clara had gone to bed and the house was quiet, I stood in the kitchen making tea. Marcus came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. "Good mom moment today," he said. "I heard you talking to Clara." "Passing on my hard-won wisdom," I said lightly. "She's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her. To have all of this." I turned in his arms. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd stayed with Adrian? If I hadn't had the knowledge to avoid that disaster?" "Every day," he said quietly. Every day, I'm grateful you chose to walk away, to find me, to give us a chance. Best decision I ever made. Then I'm second best, he corrected. The best decision was choosing yourself first. Everything else followed from that. And he was right, of course. That was the lesson I'd learned, the one I'd try to teach Clara and Oliver. You have to choose yourself before you can truly choose anyone else. You have to know your worth before you can recognize people who see it too. That engagement ring I'd let Vanessa steal had been a symbol of everything wrong with my previous life. A relationship built on lies, a family built on favoritism, a sense of self-worth built on other people's approval. The ring Marcus had given me was different, simple, unique, chosen specifically for me because he knew me. It represented a choice, his choice of me and my choice of him. But more than that, it represented the choice I'd made for myself, to fight, to survive, to build something better. I'm 38 now, 44 if you count both lives, which I sometimes do in quiet moments. Clara is 14, Oliver is 11. Marcus and I have been married for 15 years. My business has expanded internationally. His tech empire continues to grow. We're financially secure, emotionally healthy, and genuinely happy. My parents are in their 70s now, slowing down but still present in our lives. They've become the grandparents I never expected them to be, loving, supportive, actively working to make up for the parents they never were. It's not perfect, but it's real. Vanessa is out there somewhere, living her own life. I haven't seen her in 14 years. I don't plan to. That door is closed, locked, and I've lost the key. Not out of hatred anymore, but out of simple disinterest. She's a character from a story I used to live before I rewrote the ending. Sometimes I think about that girl I was in my previous life. 23 and dying on a city street. Alone and convinced she was worthless. I think about how she'd feel if she could see me now. Married to a man who adores me. Mother to 2 incredible children, successful in my own right. Surrounded by people who choose me every single day. I think she'd be proud. I hope she'd be proud. But more than that, I hope she'd understand that her death wasn't meaningless. It gave me the knowledge I needed to rewrite my story. It gave me the chance to become someone strong enough to fight back, smart enough to plan, brave enough to walk away from everything familiar and build something new. That engagement ring I let Vanessa steal was never meant to be mine. It was cubic zirconia, fake, worthless, a symbol of a life built on lies. I let her have it because I knew what she didn't. The real treasure wasn't the ring or the man or the family's approval. The real treasure was me. My worth, my intelligence, my capacity for love and strength and growth. And once I knew that, once I truly, deeply believed it, everything else fell into place. I married someone who actually chose me, yes. But more importantly, I chose myself. And that made all the difference. Every night before I sleep, I look at Marcus beside me, think about my children in their rooms, consider the life I've built, and I smile. Because I won. Not through destruction or vengeance, though those had their place. I won through construction. Building a life so full and rich and beautiful that my previous life, with all its pain and betrayal, faded into insignificance. They say the best revenge is living well. They're right. But it's not just about showing your enemies what they lost. It's about showing yourself what you gained. I gained everything, and I'm never letting it go.